Hello, friends. Robin here from Pocono Speaks, coming to you from the Pocono podcasting station here in Stroudsburg. And I'm here on kind of a different note than I've been so far, but I've got a friend with a story, and we all know I invite everyone to talk to me because I listen as Pocono Speaks. Jason, how you feeling today?
Groggy, but I'm not nervous.
Well, that's good. It's good. It's good to be at least not nervous.
I'm also gassy, but I told you about that. I don't know why you closed that door.
Well, we got to close the door. We want to keep the influences out so we can keep it pure in here.
You're not going to like the influence in here then.
That's okay.
I'll hold off. Don't worry.
I appreciate that. I do. So I've known you for, what, about 7 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a bit. Jason's an artist, and a very good one at that. I have a portrait hanging in my house that he did for me. You know, friends will do that.
No, it was a caricature. It wasn't a portrait. Portraits are flattering.
Oh, this is flattering. I've got a huge nose. I've got bulging eyes.
I made him fat.
It was great.
Fat.
Well, I was fatter at the time.
No, I exaggerated. I'm not happy with it, but what's done is done.
Well, I'm happy with it.
I know. You got a great deal on it.
I did. That's true. But today we've got something a little bit more serious to talk about, though.
Oh, it's very serious.
So this was, let's see, you want to talk about something that happened, it was about 4 years ago now?
Yeah, but it was long drawn out. This is not the kind of fame I want, and it's actually not even news anymore. It's history. I've got news, and I've got... My grandmother deserves a public grassroots movement and sympathy for her unfair situation, which is not related to my stories. I'll be speaking about that a little bit at the end. It's something that's bothered me for years. It's immoral. It's unfair. It's completely legal. But right now I have to talk about the worst thing that ever happened to me in that same driveway, my grandmother's house in Sailorsburg, Pennsylvania. And my current involvement in the court system, which is my fault. Recent involvement, which is now history, not news anymore, which was not my fault, was very specifically other people's faults, and they just made it worse. My current problems, which are my fault, but has reactivated every feeling I've had about our messy, too big to fail justice system, which fails plenty. Fails a lot.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's let everybody know exactly what happened. I mean, we've all seen it in the paper, and we all know. We've seen the posts.
No one knows about this story except a handful of people.
Yeah, we've seen your posters around town. I remember I had them up in the shop a couple of times. You know, I made sure they were still there. But so what happened?
Posters like this.
Actually, that's the one that I had hanging in. This is the one I had hanging in the shop for the longest time.
That is my protest outside the Monroe County Courthouse on June 21st, 2017. That's my sign. That's the other side of this sign. This sign is dated now. I made this prior to a bench trial in 2017 at the Monroe County Courthouse. That's actual me. Someone took a photo of me. Mm-hmm. They emailed it to me. And then I made my own newspaper headline.
Yeah, a little inference there.
Which connects with a real news story that people know about, but they don't understand how this 2016 news story relates to this 2017 non-news story, which could have been news because I went to the news. They just didn't care.
No, they should have. We care.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so let's I hate to bring up bad memories, but can we bring you back to that?
No, yeah, let's do it. I'm definitely here for that, and there's the other two things I'm going to mention because I'm in trouble with the law.
Mm-hmm.
I might even be going to jail on Monday. This is Friday. And that is new stuff from 2018 on. But this is from 2016 on.
Yeah, let's start at the root.
Okay, all right. This is me. That's my stitches in my face. Mm-hmm. Previous year, my best friend didn't want to be my friend anymore. My girlfriend from a long time ago has moved on. Estranged family members. So it's just easy for me to slip into depression. Mm-hmm. Alcohol helps. But hey, mowing, I'm outside. I'm drinking. I think I even cried a little bit that day just thinking about my cat. I'm an emotional drinker. So now I got a fire going. The sun has gone down. I haven't been in the house yet. So when the sun goes down, the house is dark. I'm outside. I got music blaring out of my car. Big fire. Drinking beer. And I stink. I smell like smoke. I smell like yard. And a little bit before midnight, a state trooper cruise car pulls next to my driveway and asked me if I had, and the trooper comes out, there's two guys in there, and he asked me if I have ID.
Of course, your ID is inside at the time.
Yeah, it might have been in my car, but most likely it was in the house. I didn't expect that. I had some previous involvement with state police with DUIs or potential DUIs. Mm-hmm. Alcohol is how I've solved depression and has caused more problems. But I knew I was drunk, but I knew I wasn't driving, but I didn't want to get tricked or trapped into some kind of DUI charge by going in my car. I don't know. But I didn't know what was going on. I thought that maybe there's a noise complaint. I am playing music pretty loud, but I live in a rural area. There are neighbors, but I never had any complaints before. No one was at the house. Grandma wasn't there at the time. The house is dark. I'm outside. It's dark. There's no street lamps, no sidewalks. It's rural.
So the only light is that fire that you had.
Yeah, which had gone out. So
okay,
he wants to see my ID. And I'm like, why? I'm upset. I'm worried, but I'm not doing anything terrible. So I'm just. At some point he mentions something to a break-in, and I thought maybe he thought I was trying to break into my house. Someone had called the cops on me, confusing me for a burglar at my own place. I found out all the backstory afterwards. Well, at some point I'm in handcuffs. I've seen that video. There's dash cam video of the whole thing, which I actually own. I don't have it here today. I have some still imagery from that video. I was put in handcuffs quickly. Oh, by the way, the very first thing I said to the police officers on video is I said, "How can I help you?" I said it in kind of a drunken voice, but I'm not driving. I'm in my yard. And very quickly, maybe 2 minutes or less, I'm in handcuffs, and not much longer after that, I'm bleeding on the ground. The reason I was bleeding, one, I didn't know why I was in handcuffs. I'm in my front yard in handcuffs, which is embarrassing. It's nighttime, it's rural, but there's still a busy road, so anyone could see me in handcuffs in my front yard, and you automatically look like you're guilty of something. That's just embarrassing. And plus, I wasn't committing a crime. Why am I in handcuffs? What have I done?
So you're at your own home. You're confused. You're inebriated.
I'm inebriated, but I can walk. I'm not tripping over myself drunk.
Okay, so how did you get to bleeding from just standing there in handcuffs?
Okay, so I'm in handcuffs in my front yard. I had been drinking, but I think I would be upset to be in handcuffs in my front yard if I was sober and I wasn't committing a crime.
The point of handcuffs is to make you upset, isn't it?
I guess.
They're cold, they're hard, goes on your
wrists. They're not comfortable. He wants me to sit on the ground. There's two state troopers. The person that asked me for my ID, I'm not even going to name him because, believe it or not, Trooper, you know who you are, Trooper S, period, Trooper S. I actually kind of forgive you by now. But there was 2 troopers there, and eventually two more showed up. It's a grand total of 4. Big guys, too. The trooper that asked for my ID wanted me to sit on the ground, and I angrily refused. I'm upset enough to be in handcuffs in my front yard, not committing a crime. Now you want me to be even more embarrassed, sitting on the damn ground, in cuffs, front yard, like I've committed some crime. I'm not sitting on the ground. So in the video, at some point, he decides he's going to put me on the ground, but I don't think he meant to do it in a violent way. I think they have their own takedown procedures. Mm-hmm. The ground is a rocky driveway. I'm in a driveway. It's rocks that I spread out my own self. Not even round rocks. They're like sharp slate rocks that I spread like 20 tons of it the previous summer. I guess he's going to try and lower me to the ground in some way, but maybe I slip out of his hands. I don't know. But my hands are bound behind my back, and I hit the rocks face first, causing this, which is the other side of that sign. And I have an immediate panic attack. My arms are bound behind my back. I'm in my driveway at nighttime, bleeding, gushing blood from my face, surrounded by two at first, but then eventually 4 big guys. And it doesn't matter if they're wearing police uniforms or ski masks. If you are assaulted and you're bound at your home, you're going to have at least some kind of reaction. My reaction was loud swearing, and at some point further down in the video, I purposely got blood that was coming out of my face across the shirt of the nearest state trooper standing next to me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the same guy that tripped me, but I didn't know who tripped me because it happened from behind. That's why it was kind of a sucker punch, because I didn't expect to I didn't expect to be in handcuffs that night. I didn't expect to be bleeding in the driveway, and I sure as hell didn't expect to go to jail that night either.
But here you are, blood all over yourself in your driveway. You end up with blood on one of the state troopers.
Yeah, and that's after the fact. I'm bleeding first, and then I purposely got blood on one of the shirts of the trooper next to me. And remember, I'm not in my right frame of mind, not because of alcohol, but because I'm just been assaulted while I was bound. I remember having absolute panic, fear feelings, which in me looks like anger and rage, but I wasn't fighting. I didn't run. It's all on video. I can prove everything I'm saying, by the way. It is on film. Yeah. Which I didn't bring, but I have some images. Yeah, I do have some images.
Yeah.
Dark in here.
Pull those up.
There's the progression.
So we have...
Oh, I'm tired.
Are these actually in an order?
Well,
looks like it starts here, then here, then here.
This is after the the blood. I would say
They put a bag over your head?
Yeah, because I'm bleeding.
They put a bag over your head.
I would say there's a trooper I got blood on. Trooper. You know what? They both their last names started with an S, so I can't just keep saying Trooper S.
Is that what that stain is on the shoulder and in that one?
No, it was across his chest. That's
Across
just his
chest?
epaulets
Oh,
or
that's
whatever.
just the-
Okay, so then, all right. So now the trooper pointing down at me is the trooper that assaulted me, whether he meant to or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's assault. This is my driveway, by the way, and it's not the scene of the crime. We're going to talk about that, why they were there. Bag on head, mesh bag. Being led
So
towards.
that bag is just because you're bleeding.
No, because I purposely got blood on the trooper's shirt next to me, so that's how they dealt with that. I mean, of course,
they put something
they're worried
between the
about
blood and
disease, but
themselves,
I'm letting them wonder what. It doesn't matter because I've just been assaulted. I mean, I
Right.
want to see what happens to you when you are bound by anybody and you hadn't committed a crime and now you're bleeding and you're being. Basically, I was assaulted and kidnapped that night. Because if I had committed a crime, then it would have been an arrest. But I hadn't committed a crime. They turned it into a crime, though.
Well, let's talk about the actual crime for a second. So why were the police there?
Well, I didn't know at the time. I found out everything backstory.
Yeah.
I watched my blood dry in my driveway that whole summer, and during that summer, I found out the story. About a half mile down the road, there's a house. It's a rural house surrounded by trees close to the interstate exit. There was a guy whose name is here. I don't care about him. I might be meeting him, though. Trying to get into a house where a woman was scared for her life, and she called the state police. We don't have local police in Salisbury, so it's just whatever the nearest state cops are on the interstate. I think they came from Swiftwater. That barracks is now closed, ironically.
Yeah.
And they were there to save her life. I didn't know this was going on at the time. So he got away that night, and they went driving around. And they saw me, the only person outside at nighttime. And I stood out like a sore thumb. They were looking for a white guy. That's how much they knew. I had long hair at the time. I have short hair now, but I had long hair at the time. And I don't have a single tattoo on my body, but they were looking for a tall guy, short hair with arm tattoos. But I'm the only guy. He got away. They're doing their job, but I didn't know this was going on. It's like being struck by lightning. It's like really bad luck. They find me instead of him. A month later, they do get the guy. On the front page of the July 7th, 2016 Pocono Record, there was a manhunt. This is a month later. There's a manhunt, and I think they even used a helicopter not far from that actual break-in area where they had seen this dude sleeping in his van or something, and someone called the police, and he tried to elude them, and the neighbors were complaining about the state police then as well. It's in that article. So they finally caught the guy. That's why they were there that night. There was a crime going on down the road. About half a mile, rural area, dark. Criminal. I was the stupidest criminal ever because I was not being secretive about anything. I was in plain sight, loud music playing. So they tried to turn that into assault charge, and the cops did their best to throw as many potential charges as they could because at the time they still thought I was the guy.
Right.
I think they realized that at some point during the night they had the wrong guy, but they're still going to try and turn it around where I'm the guy, an innocent man assaulted by state troopers at his home. Now all of a sudden they're going to try and charge me for assaulting a police officer with my bloody face and turn me into a felon and potentially send me to jail for 10 years just because there's a guy breaking into a house half a mile from where I live, which I didn't know him. I said I forgive these state troopers. I somewhat forgive them. They did some shady shit later on I didn't like. But I understand that a policeman has to make split-second decisions. You know, just like an ambulance or firemen, they're called to something, they don't know what's going on when they get there. It's just their job. They respond to an accident or a fire or a crime. They don't know what they're going into. My town doesn't have local police, so these would not have been local cops that would have seen me in my yard 100 times, recognized me. These are just guys off the interstate from another town, and they don't know what to expect. So the forgiveness that I can offer is to the particular state troopers that showed up that night who thought I was the guy and were there to save a lady's life and be the heroes. They made a mistake. They made a terrible mistake. The only reason I can partially forgive them is I feel like they actually tried to bury me, and we're going to allow that to happen instead of them getting in trouble for injuring and arresting an innocent man. But like I said, they had to make a split-second decision that night, and they were not there to be bad guys. They were there to be heroes and help someone in need. My ire now is specifically for the Monroe County court system, various individuals involved in that courthouse, and how they unnecessarily dragged it out. And we're going to proceed to trial and have me tried for assaulting a police officer, which is a felony, and turn me into a convict, turn me into a felon, put me in jail, ruin my life. People in the Monroe County Courthouse that work there, who weren't there that night, they weren't responding officers. It was just something on the docket, and only there because these state troopers chose to press a lot of charges against me, as well as harm me.
Is that a choice that state troopers actually make to press that, or is that something that they're required to do by law?
Here's the thing. If you rub blood on somebody, especially a policeman, that's always going to be considered assault. Okay? But I wasn't bleeding until I was assaulted by a state trooper unnecessarily. There was no blood on me I wasn't engaging in a crime. I wasn't at the scene of the crime. I wasn't committing any crime except maybe they if they want, well, they threw all that on there as well. I think I would have accepted a public drunkenness or disorderly
I thought
conduct.
it couldn't be public drunkenness if it's on your own property legally.
It doesn't matter because what they were charging me with assaulting a police officer, big crime.
Yeah.
So they were going to go all the way with
Everything else
it.
was secondary or tertiary.
Remember at the time, the policeman thought I was the guy, but I do believe, based on what I heard on 911 calls, back and forth banter between state troopers and the dispatcher, that at some point they definitely realized. Maybe the two troopers that showed up afterwards realized it first because they interviewed the lady. They even brought, I don't think they brought me, but I think they showed her a photo of me, and she's like, that's not him. Because she knew the guy. This wasn't a stranger to her. So his name's Mark Everett. Thanks, Mark. You caused all this. She was a victim that night. She was the victim. She was a victim of a crime, and it probably could have gone very bad for her that night. She might have been assaulted or murdered. Who knows? He got away, and then I ended up becoming a victim of, well, I'd say bad luck, bad circumstances. But then also, I feel like these state troopers, I probably will name them anyway. These state troopers, once they realized their mistake, were still willing to bury me and allow me to just take on the punishment of their mistakes. But like I said with the forgiveness thing, they have to make split-second decisions. It's nighttime. They don't know me. I'm drunk. They're trying to save someone's life. I wasn't belligerent at first. I did become extremely belligerent, but I think you would if your face was gashed, you're bound. But I wasn't fighting. I never tried to run away. They try to turn that into an assault. My absolute eternal belligerence now is for this court system, this courthouse. I'm not going to say the court system. I'm just going to say specifically the Monroe County courthouse and quite a few individuals there, one in particular, that were willing to just take this all the way to its terrible fruition and then at the last minute change their mind. So I had to. I got bailed out of jail. I got stitched up in jail. Oh, I was taken to Pocono Medical first because I'm bleeding. No, actually, I think I was taken to the police station first. Yeah, police station first with a mesh bag on my head, swift water, while I watched the state trooper that just assaulted me type up his report. And that's the time where he came up with 7 charges, various degrees of severity. I'm just sitting there bleeding and watching that, realizing that I'm an innocent man, but there's nothing I can do. I'm in cuffs. I'm arrested. There's no point even talking to them. I'm just observing what's going on. I say I want to go to the hospital. Well, I don't say I want to go to the hospital. They take me to the hospital. I say to the people at the Pocono Medical emergency room, don't touch my face until you take photos. Please take photos of my face, and then you can clean it up and give me stitches. Well, we don't do that here. Someone said that. And I was like, well, you're not touching my face then until you take photos prior. And they wouldn't take photos, so I said, well, then you're not touching my face. So I went to jail bloody with rocks and dirt encrusted in this gash, which healed great. It's almost like it didn't even happen.
You can barely see it.
It's right along the eyebrow.
Oh, that's why
it blends in with a wrinkle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like it didn't happen. And that's another thing to be unhappy about. I mean, who wants this facial scar? But now without the facial scar being very visible, it's almost like, hey, it didn't even happen to you. But it was a deep gash, and it really hurt. It was full of rocks and blood and dirt. And I got taken to jail and spent the night in the holding cell. And jail nurse came in and said, it might be too late for stitches to help you. They gave me a warm rag, and I cleaned it out myself. It was a deep gash, too. That's why I bled so much. Sharp rocks. And the jail doctor stitched me up. But it was like at least a day or so. Maybe not a whole day, but I spent several hours with a dried, bloody, dirty gash in a holding cell in the Monroe County Correctional. And jail doctor stitched me up, and he must have done a good job. I took the stitches out myself a couple weeks later. But that didn't stop Pocono Medical from mailing me some bills, about $1,000 in...
For not doing anything?
As soon as you get brought into an ER, walk into an ER, it costs you money whether they do anything or not. And then it's like
That's
3 different
ridiculous.
bills. I think there was like the Physicians Association. I look up on the wall, it's in Snydersville, of the building, and it says RAW. Big letters. I didn't even notice it. R-A-W. There's a winery right next to the magistrate's office called RAW, which backwards spells war. But I noticed that after that's all over and I walk out and I look up and I just see the word RAW in big letters. And I realize I'm making the connection. That's how I'm about to be treated for a year. It took them 1 year, June 9th of 2016 to June 22nd of 2017. But didn't fire it. Good, thanks. I was on the
At
ground.
least there's that.
So, her statements this is out of context, but it's the most incredulous statement. She acted as if the troopers were in danger. They were not. Okay. She acted as if what happened to my face was potentially what was going to happen to their face, and that is just such utter bullshit. Because I was unarmed, in handcuffs, surrounded by large men with guns. They were never going to have any of their blood pouring. Only one of them got my blood on him, which I helped cause. So
And then it
she
took
was
so long.
and she didn't like how much I swore. I had another statement in my backpack, another one of her statements. I posted some of this stuff up around the courthouse. She also didn't like how much I was swearing. Most of my swearing started after being injured. I might have said a few cuss words, but I became a literal, just a fury of bad words, which was my major way of venting my distress.
Mm-hmm.
Besides blood on Trooper Robert S.'s shirt, not face, not chin, which I was doing with the reasoning that I thought I was creating more evidence. She was already right on the side of the police. So I do believe that the judge in this matter, the troopers made a mistake. I wouldn't consider it an honest mistake because they tried to bury me with charges. But the troopers made a mistake. The judge, I say, did worse than a mistake. I'd say that the judge made a terrible, ill-informed, biased decision that was pro-state trooper, who didn't have any sympathy for me.
A little bit of sympathy would have gone a long way.
And honestly doesn't deserve to be president judge. I do believe that she should be removed from that post, but that's not something I can engineer. Now, the prosecution we're going to go forward with it as well. They changed their minds. Mere days before a trial, which was not going to be a good thing, but at least that would have been publicity, a trial. My public defender, the replacement public defender for the terrible public defender, who I don't have a problem with, so I'll mention him, Eric Kloss, public defender. Okay. He did a workable job. We didn't always get along, but I don't feel animosity towards him. Mm-hmm. I do feel animosity for some other people in that office. He told me that the video was playing and I believe the head prosecutor, or one of the top guys, but probably Mr. Christine himself, walks in the room, sees the video playing, and realizes right then to drop the assaulting a police officer charge. And I think they might have dropped resist. They kept a couple charges, but they took the worst stuff off right there and then. But that's April of 2017, mere days before jury selection. I'm allowed to wait so long after being injured and jailed unnecessarily to even have a judge make a decision, wait for her decision to go to trial and get close to an actual trial, which could have been a terrible, damning experience for me. There was no guarantee I was going to be found innocent by a jury. Mm-hmm. And just to have them just so nonchalantly at the last minute be like, yeah, we'll drop that. This was mental torture. And you know what? If I wouldn't have been bailed out, I probably would have been in jail that whole time as well. So it was not just an innocent man got arrested. It was not just an innocent man got bloodied and had to go to jail. It's what this courthouse, the judge and the prosecution, how they did their jobs and who they did it to, and what they were were willing to allow to happen, and the mental torture I went through, mental torture. Worse, I think even worse than being in jail the whole time would have been even worse, but that's the only way it could have been worse, or being dead because a cop shot me.
But all of this, the whole process goes very much against the founding principles of the legal system.
Even my public defender, Eric Kloss, said he disagreed with her statements about me and the state troopers in my driveway. Cussing made me unlikable, but I wasn't cussing until I was bloody. Getting blood on Trooper Robert S.'s shirt could be construed as assault, but I think because I ducked while I did it and didn't aim for his face, and it was not a headbutt. They kept calling it a headbutt in her report. Oh, they kept using the word headbutt. That's a headbutt. I did a wipe. Here's his chest. Actually, his chest was here. I ducked, so I wasn't getting it on his face. I'm not a violent man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to harm him. I thought I was creating more evidence, which, that backfired on me. But they tried to take that particular moment and turn that into a real crime where they tried to turn that into the crime, not just the guy that they were called for and got away for a month. And she was willing to let that happen, and the prosecution I think this is all assistant district attorneys just going forward, doing, just the wheels are just spinning. Let's just go forward with this.
Mm-hmm.
And
what happened to innocent until proven guilty?
They were going to let the jury decide that. That's the thing. This should not have even gone. Not only should this have not gone towards the trial, so the prosecution at the last minute realized that, came to their senses. She never came to her senses. She sent it towards the trial. In her brief, that's just one sentence from her brief,
mm-hmm.
and the most absurd. But her brief was so against me and so called it what she saw, because she saw the video. She wasn't there, but she saw the video, and she knew I wasn't the criminal they were looking for. Her brief was absurd. It was like if two people are watching the same thing, and those two same people describe what they just saw. Hers was way off. And apparently she's been doing the job too long. Just cannot make good judgments anymore. So she should not have sent it towards trial. That was the first huge mistake. Mm-hmm. Besides what the state troopers did, besides how my first public defender treated me, she ruined everything. Now, the district attorney's office came to their senses at the last minute, but they took their sweet time. And they still kept some charges, but they just got rid of the worst stuff. So the jury trial was then evaporated, which is a good thing, because now the worst charge is off, which I didn't deserve to have on me anyway. Mm-hmm. But it also meant that any potential publicity, news, jury, about what happened to me was also going to evaporate.
Yeah, so that was thrown right out the window.
It was pushed till June for a bench trial. I think they kept a few charges, certainly kept harassment on there, and it didn't qualify for a jury. It was just going to be a bench trial, June 20. Is it here? June 22nd, 2017. That's more than a year after the worst night of my life. More than a year. And it's going to be before Judge Mark and my attorney, Eric Kloss, and the prosecuting or the assistant district attorneys. I think I know their names too, but it doesn't matter. Well, none of the state troopers even showed up for the bench trial. There was 4 total. This sign I made prior to the bench trial as I stood outside the courthouse trying to get attention. So that all this is things for people to read at intersections and outside the courthouse. I misspelled bureaucracy. Sorry, I added a U later.
That's okay.
So I added a few things after the trial was over. Just 1 or 2 things, this line. So this is all prior to the bench trial, and then I just added 1 thing after the bench trial. The trooper whose blood I got, the trooper who I got my blood on on his shirt, not his skin or face, I did not harm or seek to harm, was on vacation in Scotland. And the trooper that assaulted me wasn't there, and the 2 other troopers that showed up and interviewed the original crime victim weren't there. He just didn't see how he could do a story on it. And the editor must have agreed as well, then editor. So it wasn't reported. And if it would have been reported, I think a couple good things would have happened. I did go to WBRE, and Brittany Strunk, I think that's how it's pronounced. I managed to convince her to come videotape me outside the courthouse with my signs. So she took some footage, but it never made the news. Because remember, the bench trial, that's not as sexy as a jury trial, and the cops didn't even show up. She was there, though. She was sitting in the gallery, and I think one of the guys from the Pocono Record, not the one I spoke to, was sitting there as well. So they were eyeing it, but nothing happened. So it just kind of didn't become a story anymore.
Petered out.
I actually, if anything, I would have liked a nice little editorial. So I didn't get a news story. I didn't get an apology. Yes, every charge was dropped, but I don't think I got justice because I also never got a lawsuit. You only have like a 2-year statute of limitations for pressing charges against the state police.
And a year of that was spent trying to find out what was going on.
That it can be argued that the thing I should not have done is rub my bloody face across Trooper Robert S.'s shirt and cause my unexpected arrest to happen. It also could have been argued that you should have sat on the ground. I didn't sit on the ground on purpose because I thought this all happened quick. That it was very shameful to be in handcuffs in your front yard, and then even worse to be sitting on the ground in handcuffs in your front yard, having not committed a crime for all the neighbors to see. So I refused to sit on the ground, but I wasn't in danger. I only got blood on a trooper after I had been bloodied, being tripped from behind, and then having a panic attack. I mean, arms bound behind your back and bleeding is probably the worst feeling ever.